Welcome back. It's episode 13, and this time we have Arnau, founder of Throxy. Welcome, Arnau.
Thanks for having me.
On today's podcast, we're going to be talking about myths and truths of AI in outbound sales, and we will uncover how it is like to be part of YC. Arnau, first of all, who are you? Give us a little brief background of yourself, just for the audience to kind of locate you in the map.
Yeah, I guess I've always enjoyed hacking projects since I was a kid. Fell in love with computers when my dad first introduced me to one when I was like age of 10 and loved playing video games. And by the age of 16, I said video games look really cool. What if we could build our own video games and then fell into a rabbit hole of machine learning with a Stanford course of Andrew Ng on Coursera. And then from that just started building projects. And one day it's like, okay, I want to go to an elite institution to go learn more about AI. I ended up working for JP Morgan, really grateful to have spent 15 months there with top AI researchers. And at a point I felt like I could give the world more than just building AI in finance. Pablo, one of my best friends from high school, I was working as an SDR in a couple of startups, and he was always telling me how fun startups were. So we said we can go do this ourselves and optimize for our growth and learning curve, and that's taken us to where we are today, a year and a half later.
Quick break. I wanted to thank you for showing up to the Agentic Project, the podcast where Danny, my co host, and I interview founders building the latest AI tools in the space. This podcast wouldn't be possible without flowhawk.com, the AI agency that Danny and I run in order to help teams optimize their operations. If you think that your team could have more efficient operations, go to flowhawk.com. We might be able to help you. Okay, let's keep going with the podcast. Actually, now that you mentioned, Throxy was founded in 2023. That was what, early days of ChatGPT 3.5 for, and now you're here. A lot has changed in the past 2 years, and you have already been around with Throxy for 2 years. So how has the evolution been so far?
I think what most people don't realize is we had GPT-0 and then GPT-1 and GPT-2, and we were already working with these early models back in the day, and you could see early hints of how useful they were going to be, because every time you generated words with GPT-2, it felt like magic. It didn't make sense at all. It was all gibberish. But you could see was completely different, a new paradigm shift. And essentially with new models coming out, just the capabilities of agents and how much human oversight is needed just decreases exponentially, which has been super fun to build and super fun to get in front of customers, because that aha moment of saying we can now have this new feature is super exciting for us as a founder, as a company, and I think for the ecosystem as a whole too.
Just into context, because we both, from our side, have done our research. We know what Throxy is, but maybe some people listening don't really know what you guys do at Throxy. So before we dig in into AI sales and outbound and so on, why don't you tell us a little bit what is Throxy, and what do you guys do?
Yeah, of course. So obviously, many B2B companies have a huge pain point of wanting to get more in front of more decision makers. And a very obvious way is to do this through cold email. Cold email is essentially directed private ads to the people you want to get in front of. And traditionally, we've solved this problem by having humans write cold emails either by hand, then using sequencers. But essentially, SDRs have to take care of the whole pipeline of sending campaigns. And our value proposition at Throxy is we'll book you those meetings with the decision makers you want. And our internal thesis is, instead of scaling with SDRs internally, like a traditional company, we're scaling with AI agents. Obviously, having humans in the loop supervising that we're getting the results we want to get. But every time we hit a bottleneck of a repetitive task, we just automate it with agents. And surprisingly, to most of the time, agents do a better job than humans, because we're not built to do these monotonous, tedious, one time after the other back office tasks, and that feels really special.
So walk us through in a campaign run by one of your guys in the sales team and with Throxy. Walk us through the campaign from lead mapping to outreach, qualification, and meeting booked. Like how does that work? When does the AI agent take part? When does the human actually contribute?
So our the first thing we do is like we jump on a call with our customers and we want to really deeply understand their ICP and who they want to target, because if we don't have this knowledge, we'll like just like not be able to transfer it down like the pipeline, let's say. And essentially like once we have like a really good understanding of what companies they want to target and why they want to target these companies, we have built like an internal proprietary database of data. We have agents which are crawling this database and running similarity search on like lookalike companies, and filters, or like depending on the industry, semantic search, and things like this. And what we do first is like build a highly targeted list of companies, not only by using like traditional filters you'd see in a database, but by using AI agents to like disqualify companies based on very specific parameters. And once we have like this like really good ICP company list, the next step is like finding the decision makers in these companies. We don't always find the decision maker on a company. Our database is not yet perfect, but if we don't find a decision maker, we go to like the next best person. And essentially what we have next is like a targeted people list of like who do we want to like go after. And once we have this, we're just running like experiments of like personalized emails based on our hypothesis. Each step of like the flow has like human oversight, and we like to be like very like on top of customers, and we have them giving us feedback because they know their business better than anyone. It's their bread and butter. And once we launch our first emails, we then like gather that data from the responses, which is like really useful to make sure we're improving every time, whether we need to change the copy, whether we need to adjust who we're targeting. If the company's too big, we maybe want to go for a champion, or vice versa. And that's more or less like at a high level how we operate.
So for someone who's in sales now, and there is a bunch of AI tools that like the tool stack for sales right now, it's massive. You've got Clay, you've got HeyReach, you've got Instantly. We could name like over 100 tools that a regular sales team is using. Not a regular, but like a sales team in a startup is using now. How do you compete against the established tools for each section of the sales funnel? How do you convince someone to go this way other than just having your full structure of like the GTM, so-called GTM engineer process?
So I think like there's a very clear distinction on whether like you want to invest to like build this in-house, because there's a lot of like a big learning curve and expertise needed to like learn these tools like Clay, like HeyRage. You need to like know how to set up all your whole email infrastructure, etc. And this will like obviously like take a long time, take a long investment. And normally like what we come is like, okay, you can just like come to Throxy, and our position is like we want to be like the Palantir of cold outreach, where we just come in and work with you like really closely and make your company have the best cold email sales team at your fingertips without you having to like make all the mistakes at first, right? And that's essentially like our thesis. We don't see ourselves as like competing against Clay or HeyReach in deals. We see more like competing against like having an internal SDR team, which we think like will like change in the future years. And in the next 5 years, like we'll either see SDRs like carrying a quota which is like 10x higher, or just like full like end-to-end like AEs which are sourcing their own deals, which either like sources like companies like Throxy or similar.
Actually, I have one
So
question.
you, oh, go for it.
Yeah, so actually, it's so easy to blame a tool when it's not working. And so, how do you manage client expectations when the problem is not the tools itself, like in this case, Troxy, but maybe it's the product that they are trying to sell?
Well, we're very clearly like a partnership between them and us. So like we see ourselves as like not a tool, but just like a team together. Our like approach is always to like try and diagnose the issues we're having, is like is the companies we're reaching out to like not the companies we want to, is the people we're getting from those companies not the people. And like by going them from first principles and at the root level of every single step, most of the time you can see like, okay, maybe like I was doing like bad targeting at the company level or like people level. We also like analyze like the negative replies and we can understand things. It's it's right that there's like an intuition of like, does this company have like product market fit where like people want this thing? Because like no one will book meetings if they don't want your product. But we also work with companies that are ready to like scale and that have like a repeatable offering and good clients and case studies. That's like a criteria for us. Because before that, realistically, like founder-led sales are just about like figuring it out yourself.
Mm,
Yeah.
regarding from a Throxy point of view, in the end you have to spend like a lot of time onboarding these clients, trying to understand like their use case, tweaking, no, what you were saying, analyzing replies. How in the end, if I guess like your intention is to bring this product to as much market as possible. So how do you plan to accelerate this process and trying to reduce this onboarding time and make sure that you can reach to as many customers as possible without having to get into a meeting each time? And yeah,
We don't
so
see
is
like
this possible, or what's your take here?
we don't see like onboarding like a waste of time. We see it more like as like super useful for us because we get to learn about the company. And in the same way, like you'd go to like a client's office and like get to learn about like what they're doing internally. We use it in this way. And if a client's like working for us with us for like 18 months, like spending like a 1 hour onboarding call on the first week, really like spread across like the 18 months is like negligible. And in terms of like scaling and analyze for did you give like the example of analyzing responses, like we built our own like internal version of like a sentiment analysis on like the replies we get, and then we get a summary through like agents and LLMs of like what are like the common trends of like people are saying and suggestions on like how we should go and do the next things. And that's like really what like makes us like really think we're onto something here is like we have like we're operating for these customers ourselves. So we know what's the repetitive task we need to automate next. And by building this, we're just able to like address the biggest bottleneck every day and get better. That will like inevitably like at the end make us have like no repetitive tasks, let's say.
And in terms of growth, you guys offer like some sort of hybrid service between a product and an agency because you're clearly on top of each client. And adding to Danny's question, how do you see Throxy growing in the next 24 months in terms of are you gonna need a large amount of SDRs slash GTM engineers to help you onboard more clients and to actually take care more thoroughly, or are you planning on like actually adding less or removing some of the human interaction in the future? What's the plan there?
So I think it's like twofold. Like obviously, like as we scale, we want to like keep to being on top of customers, and that comes from like having like great people in house. We don't actually like hire GTM engineers. What we hire is like product slash operations people, which are like people who are like super attentive to detail and want to like make sure this scales well and are operating for customers, but at the same time they're also thinking of like how could I make this better. And then on the other side, like we're already making the product better every day. So essentially, like this product person can, instead of taking like 3 clients, he can take 4 and then 5. And that's the way we grow.
Sweet. Okay, enough with speaking about Throxy. We want to speak about sales with AI. You guys are experts on this topic, and we have done a bunch of sales ourselves as well. So let's start with a round of what are the 3 things that people are getting wrong now using AI to leverage their amount of sales they get done per month?
I think like one of the biggest mistakes we made initially was just like thinking like if you write like a really highly personalized message with AI, that would like make you win. But essentially like it all starts at the top and having like good targeting. So like the messaging like matters, but like it only matters if you have like the fundamentals right. And then I guess like moving on to like the next point from that is just like make sure like all of your messages like sound human. Like no one wants to read and reply to a message that's not human. And it's very easy with AI to like just get lazy and just like tell it to like just create like a message. And most of the time we've seen like AI messages perform like sometimes worse than like just generic sequences because they sound like just like gibberish, right? And no one likes that. I think those are like the top two. Um, Three would be like hard to pinpoint at, but if I had to say something of like a mistake with AI is like just like underusing it. Like there's just like so much like leverage you can get with AI at every single point. So it's just like if you think you're doing something repetitive, chances are is like you can build something to like just help you out. Maybe not automate it, but like just like help you, and then you can like supervise it essentially. And I think like in the next like 2 3 years we're gonna see like loads of tasks being like just like okay, we used to do this by hand, but now we're just like have AI. And some people are just like skeptical to get started, but like the only way to improve is just by like having like a V0.
Got it. And regarding channels, which are the main channels you guys are using to reach out to? Because you have a very specific, you're targeting very specific industries, or you're doing outbound for very specific industries. If you want to bring this up real quick. And which are the main channels that are working for you? Is it email? Is it LinkedIn DMs? Is it cold calling? What is working for you as of now?
Thesis is like we want to like focus on only email because we believe like focus is a multiplier on work, and like just by like becoming the best on cold email is the way we're the best right now. We do have like cold calling, like once we get a positive reply to book those meetings in the calendar. We're currently like not yet working on LinkedIn or other channels, but we're always open to the future. But our focus is like just like become the very best at email, and we'll have like a unique advantage.
Sweet. I got plenty of questions here. First of all, how has the evolution of reply rate gone since you started until now in terms of, let's say, 100 emails sent? What is the positive reply rate as of now? And like, has it been improving? Is it stable? Like, how is that going?
I think like as a trend for a client, we generally improve as we get more data over time. And we're also able to like do re-engagement campaigns with people who are like positive, but then like we didn't book a meeting, etc. And we get more data on a client. It is true that there was a time like a year ago where there was a huge deliverability change. And I remember that day specifically because overnight or like reply rates tank. We were booking like I'd say like 2 meetings per week for this customer, and suddenly like we had no reply rates in like 2 days, and it's like there's something here. So like there's definitely like over time I think deliverability like is getting harder. It's just like a cat and mouse game, and like you just need to like make sure you're on top of your latest game. If you want like specific stats, we like normally like for Imno, which is one of our longest serving clients, and we have like the most data, we're around like 7% like reply rate. Around a third of them are positive, and then around another fifth of them of those positive get transferred to like a meeting. And that's like I'd say like pretty stats. We're very happy, they're very happy. We've been working for that with them for like more than 18 months essentially. Yeah.
It's around less than 1%, like the rate to get a meeting, right?
That's like our golden spot is like yeah, getting to 1%. One meeting per 100 contacts is like really good if we can get there.
And now that you were mentioning in terms of data, that at some point, like the most data you have, the better the reply rate is. What do you think it's a proper amount of data to start getting some insights that help the system improve?
I
Are
think
we
this
talking
like
about 1,000 emails, 10,000?
think this is one of the mistakes people make. They try and like make assumptions on like a campaign of like just 50 people, and then you're gonna get like a lot of variation on that if like someone replied or didn't reply. We normally like to base it like around at least 1,000 people per experiment, because then we can like have like proper significance of like okay, if like no people out of 1,000 didn't reply, we're probably like doing something wrong here. But there's no science realistically behind this. I'd advise like at least 1,000, and like we don't want to burn too many leads or like too much of our time, and to 10,000 is definitely like a lot of data. That's for sure.
Right. So describe us What is the format template, like the golden template for a first cold demo? How do you guys structure it? What is do you have like, please give us some tips for how to write the perfect subject, the perfect copy for that first demo, and then we'll get onto the follow-ups and the sequences.
Yeah. I don't think like there's like necessarily like a perfect thing, but if we had to like base it off a new client, which they've never run cold email and they have very little data on what works in their industry or what's worked for them before, we normally like to like put like a personalized line. So like something of like, why are we reaching out to this person essentially? Is it because like they had like a recent trigger? Is it because their company like announced something? Is it because they just joined this new role? So essentially like saying like, hi, first name, and the reason why you're reaching out to this person, right? And then like the next step we like to do is like introducing like asking if they have a pain point, right? It's like what we call like similar to like a poke the bear, if like asking like a rhetorical question of like, would you like to have more meetings? And it's like obviously like everyone would like to have more meetings, but it makes them think of like, okay, where's this going? Like maybe this is interesting. And then finally we like to like put a little bit of social proof and credibility and saying like, okay, like we've booked like X amount of meetings for like a very similar company. Would you like to like get similar results? And finally, we just like ended up with like a small call to action. Most of our emails are like short. We like them to like, we know people are busy. We like them like, if someone's interested, they're going to read it. They have no fatigue. And that's mostly like how we approach first email. But again, like different companies may know what already works for them or what's their kind of offering, etc. Or like they may have like different value propositions. So it changes a little bit on that instead of like a one size fits all.
Like,
Fair enough.
do you also include signals in the email? Like saw that your company did this. I saw that you did this on LinkedIn. Is it that the
Well,
case?
what we like to do is like include why we're reaching out to this person, right? So like if there's a signal which is like irrelevant, like we won't include it. We don't like to include like personalization for the sake of it. But if we're reaching out because of the signal, then we do want to include it. So like if for example, like we're working with a customer and they just announced in their website that they just bought a new milling machine, right? And we're selling software to help that milling machine, we'll say like, by the way, I just saw you bought this new milling machine. Would you like to like get more performance out of it, right? So we think of signals as like a tool and like we like to use them when they're relevant. But if, for example, like they just raised the Series A and we're selling like software for machinery, we're probably not going to mention that they just raised the Series A because like that's like not relevant.
What are the sources that you track to get these signals?
We work like very closely with the customer to like understand what kind of signal is relevant for their offering, and then we just spin up AI agents which are tracking these sources based on like the digital footprint of like where these can exist. So whether it's social media, it's like job postings, it's like their own website of these customers, and essentially from like building those lists of companies, we can then just like monitor all of these things.
So then, like, I guess your client provides you a list of potential clients, and from those clients, you try to extract other potential other companies. Is it like that?
Well, it's more like the client provides us like what they're interested in and like what are like buying signals normally. And then we come with them with like, okay, here's a list of like companies which are in your ICP. And then we monitor those companies in the ICP to like understand what's the best time to reach out to those companies. So say like we built out like a list of like 5K companies we want to like attack. And then we'll be like monitoring those companies with AI agents of like, okay, when's the right time? Obviously we understand that not always there's a signal, so we're still like sending a bit of volume without like that proactive outreach, we like to call it, but like that's how we think of signals.
And back to the last question, back to the like the template you were describing regarding CTA. I personally don't like at all when I see like let's book a call or give me 15 minutes or when they ask for my time for a call right away. I do like more when I get to see like more of a lighter question like would you want me to send more info or here's a little value that I can add you, like let me know if you want this value list that I could send you. What are the CTAs? Maybe maybe you shut my mouth up and you say that you're just asking for a call. I don't know what are the CTAs that are working out for you.
I tend to agree. I think again, like CTAs depend a bit on like what kind of person you're targeting, right? If you're targeting like an executive, like we normally like tell them like, would it be okay if I can give you a quick phone call of 5 minutes? And then like in that quick phone call, we explain a bit more and then we get the meeting booked. Or sometimes it's like if we're like really struggling to get like replies, we'll be like, can I share some more information? Because like people will be more like easy to reply to a softer CTA. If we have like really high reply rates, we want to like be aggressive and like be like, okay, would it be a bad idea to like get a meeting in the calendar? It's just like context based. Sometimes it's just like we're like doing specific offers, like okay, like going at a conference and we're targeting people at conferences, be like, oh, are you at this conference? And that's the CTA, which is really soft. It's just I think you need to analyze case by case and again it's like for you to choose which one's best.
Sweet. And one question for everyone, for anyone in sales listening to this podcast, you guys probably have consumed a lot of content on social media about sales gurus and AI sales experts. What is the two things that you see out there day after day that you're like, no, stop this. Like this is not true. That actually like burns your eyes.
I personally like have a big pet peeve against like lead magnets, which just say like, oh, this is like how I filled my calendar with 100 meetings in 2 days. Like reply to this thing and you'll get it because like some people won't know that that's like either like there's a very specific context, like it can be true, but like you're not going to be able to replicate it for your own thing. And like that's like something I don't like. And then like similar to that is like paid cold email guides or things like that. It's just like if you really want to help out people, just put content out there for free. And like I think there's so much great content about cold email that we should just like encourage as a community to like build open source stuff.
Can I add one here? Can I add one here? The N8N workflow that replaces your full sales department.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
haven't I'm not like an NA10 on my Twitter feed or anything, so luckily like I don't get to
Okay.
see those that much, but I agree.
Good. The question I wanted to ask, do you have or which sources of trust do you recommend in terms of any content creator that you like or any source where you find good tips on how to properly do sales?
I think like most of them are like very well known, but like things like Josh Brown, Eric Nowalowski is great. And essentially like just following what like people put out there and just like validating your on your like own knowledge and doing your own research of like, does this make sense or not will be the best. I will say like 99% of the time, if it feels too good to be true, it will be too good to be true. Like when someone comes to us and they're like, can we book 50 meetings a month with Throxy? We're like, look, I don't know where you read this, but like, we can't do this. If you find someone that can do it, let us know. But that's the kind of thing you need to be looking for.
So actually, I want to jump onto the next topic, but this led me to something that I wanted to ask also earlier. Your business model is around meetings booked. Is that how you charge clients? I read somewhere. Is that true? Like, what is the how do you actually charge your clients?
So we have different offerings, but like one of them is some performance. We like to think like if we're replacing the work an SDR is doing, we should like be incentivized to like have upside if we book loads of meetings with a company. So we have like a model where like every time we book a meeting, we get paid more that month. And essentially like similar to an SDR with commission, it just like makes things like better for us if we do better. And that's how we think like a lot of things are going to shift, essentially moving away from like traditional seat-based pricing on like traditional software to like more outbound based output-based pricing.
So, next topic I wanted to touch on. You guys have been part of the YC batch in spring 2025.
One
Is that
second,
correct?
Nacho. Just before we switch topic, because I actually have more questions here regarding follow-ups, and this is maybe traditional way of doing, but how many follow-ups do you think in a sequence are enough to know whether we still need to keep on pushing or it's okay, we have to give up and move on?
I think it depends on sizes of your target list. If your target list is really small, you maybe want to aim for like a little bit of like a longer sequence. But normally, like we like to aim to like only 2 or 3 touch points, so maximum like 2 follow-ups. If someone hasn't replied to us by like the third email, chances are it's like they're not probably interested right now, and we just might as well like move on to the next lead and have this mindset of abundance, and then like go back to like this lead in a couple of months. Maybe something's changed there, but essentially I'd say like we rarely go over 3.
How much time in between each point?
I don't think like we spend too much time thinking about that, but between like 2 and 5 days, um we experiment with that.
And regarding
And
the template of the content of the next follow up, any tip here?
So
Heard that you should never say, "Hey, did you see my previous email?" Was
yeah,
there?
I just think that's like probably like really lazy. Like, but what we like to do is like go more in depth on like why we reached out to this person, right? So like if we reached out because there's like a specific trigger or signal, we want to like do more on the signal, right? Like, or if we reached out because we're working with a really similar company, we want to like show them a bit more of the case study. It's just like it's an opportunity to like, okay, you've already told them like why you've reached out to them. Maybe they weren't convinced the first time, but now like give them like more proof of like why they should reply to this thing. And then if we're doing a 3-step sequence, like maybe we just try a completely different approach as like kind of a bit like of a Hail Mary, and like the first 2 emails maybe didn't resonate. Let's try like a different angle here. So normally like the second one will be like a follow-up on the thread, and then the third one will be like a completely new thread, for example. But sometimes we do 2 follow-ups if we think like it's really powerful. Yeah.
Nice.
got it. So we now have the ideal or an idea of how to get a first email done right, and also a sequence that at least seems to be working for Throxy so far. Switching on to the next topic, you guys have been part of the YC batch Spring 2025. I want to know, we're curious, how did the process of applying, how did it work? Was it the first time you applied and you got in? Did you had tried before? Tell us the before getting into the batch of Spring 2025.
So I think like Pablo and I like knew we wanted to like build a company regardless of like YC or not. And like we spent like every single day like excited to like work on this problem. And we know like this is our life's work. So like we never thought of like YC as like, oh, we want to get into YC. And one day we were reading like topics of like essays of like how to build a startup and like how to talk to your customers and how to improve your product. And we saw like there was this thing called YC. And then there's like a really short application form, which I encourage everyone to do if they're in their early stages of like building a company, because like it asks like exactly the right questions, which makes you think of like, wow, if I can't answer this question, maybe it's because like I haven't figured this thing out yet, and I should go and figure it out because then that's going to improve my company, right? And in that sense, like it was like really useful. I remember like the first application we did, we took like 2.5 hours to like complete it because we didn't know the answers to these questions. And then like the application we made when we got in, we took like literally 5 minutes. And it was like, okay, this. And it was like our bread and butter. And I think just that's just like proven the pudding of like where when you know your business inside out and you're like on the growth, you can just tell. In terms of like we applied several times. We got like an interview for the winter batch. We got really good feedback from one of the partners, but he ultimately decided not to fund us. And then we went back on the spring application and got in, which was like really exciting.
Amazing. And how was it like to be there? How was it like to be in San Francisco for 3 months, working like right next to a bunch of other very like brilliant minds? A lot of kids our age, your age. How was it like those 3 months? What would be the 3 things that you like took back home with you?
Like YC honestly like changed my life. I know it's like easy to say, but like I'll try and give a couple of examples of like what I mean by that. And it's the first one of them is like probably like it sets you a really high bar for what good looks like when you're obviously like building in Barcelona or in London. Like most of your friends are just like working in like corporate jobs. And when you're inside YC, you get to like spend a lot of time with like the best founders in the world. And there's a crazy stat, which is like something around 7% of YC companies become unicorns. So essentially, like statistically, if you're around 100 companies, which 7 of them are unicorns, and you just don't know which ones they're going to be, but everyone there is like incredibly sharp and knows what they're doing or have like a lot of ambition and determination. And that gives you like a lot of energy to want to build more. I would consider myself like a very competitive person, and that just makes you want to push harder, which moves me to like point number 2. Like YC like makes you compress in like 10 weeks the batch lasts like a whole like amount of progress, which no one could ever do in another way. And it encourages you to do that by like being surrounded by other people that are doing the same, setting really ambitious goals and getting a lot of help from great people that already done this. So, and that's probably like step number 3. Like the partners at YC themselves have built amazing companies, unicorns, and just having access to like these people and being able to like go on a walk and ask the hard questions, no sugarcoating, and saying like, we have this insane problem here, we don't know how to fix it, we think we're gonna die, and then like just being able to like speak through it and like they don't give you the answers, but they ask the right questions, which make yourself like go find the answers. It's an unfair advantage to be a YC company, and I would recommend anyone to apply and like do the program if they can. And San Francisco as a whole is like an amazing city. Like it just like encourages progress. And I just think like American mindset in general is something like we in Europe should have a bit more. When you go and tell them like you're doing something, you just get said like, okay, amazing, go do it. Or like, do you want money to do this? And it's just like this feeling of like you can just do things, which is like super encouraging, alongside with San Francisco being a very positive some city and environment where like everyone's like trying to help you out because they know like if this gets big, you're gonna remember them. And they've seen it, right? Like that's the biggest thing. Like they've seen like Facebook, they've seen Airbnb, they've seen like Twitch, like all of these like companies grow. And that's why they believe that this thing's like real. So it's honestly like super exciting.
For our European audience, is it a friction, the fact of being European in terms of visas and everything, at least to apply for the program?
I don't think it is like necessarily like the depends on like what country in Europe you're from. Like obviously like if you're Russian, I think you're gonna like have a little bit more trouble, but it shouldn't be a problem. There's like people from all around the world doing YC.
Right. And which city in Europe do you think is the closest one to San Francisco in terms of mentality of entrepreneurship or in terms of mentality to build and also the networks and connections that you could potentially find in San Francisco? What would the city be in Europe?
Like a lot of people ask me this question, and I tell them like jokingly, like it's called an airport. Like you just like can go to an airport and like fly to San Francisco. But my honest answer is like Europe's like growing very fast, and I like very happy that that's the case. I think like cities like Paris, Barcelona, Stockholm, London, Berlin, like the major cities are all have like at least one great company. So like for example, we have Mistral in Paris. Sweden's like has Lagora, Lovable. Barcelona's had like a bunch of like good unicorns. Sadly, less AI so, but like I'm sure it will come. And London's growing too. They've historically had DeepMind, and now they're like have newer players like Atio or Granola. But the most important thing is just creating your own environment. At the end of the day, even if you're in San Francisco, you're going to spend a lot of time like in your own office working hard, and you shouldn't care of what's happening out there. You should care about like how can I make my product better? How can I speak to my customers and essentially make them happier? Because that's what's going to make you win. It's not like going to be the city.
And last question, we're almost at the end of the podcast where we want to close it always with a round of fire fast questions, non-AI related, just more personal. But before then, that's personal curiosity. My LinkedIn feed is fed with a bunch of YC backed startups, and they are all like, what, 20 to 25-year-old guys and women. Once you're there, do you see people older than 30, or is it actually real that there's some sort of age restriction where if you're older than 35 or 40, you're not allowed in YC?
That's definitely not true. Like I think the average age of the batch is actually something like 31. So it's like definitely not true. And I think like some people who are older are great founders and you get to speak with them and like they're amazing. There's like different like kinds of like ingredients you have in you and like younger people are probably like gonna be like more grinders and have like a lot of determination because they're young. People who have more experience will have that in them and they'll probably like make better decisions the first time. But YC like takes everyone, just like they base it on like how well do you understand your customers and are you making something that people want ultimately?
Amazing. I guess I'm just biased by my feed. So, questions more personal, not super deep, but just to get to know you a little better. And we love to ask this question because we get a different answer every time, which is, what is the one book that you would recommend to any founder?
I think one of the first books I read even before founding was Atomic Habits, and it's a very popular book, but like the number one thing that you need to do as a startup is just like show up every day and like be consistent. There's going to be like 95% of days where bad shit happens and you're going to have to be the one solving it by definition, but you just need to show up every day, the day after day. We always like we work 6 days a week. We used to work seven for the first year and a half, Pablo and I on our own. Um, and that's just like what a startup is, like just showing up and making like small improvements every day. And if you're 1% better, that's going to compound.
Solid answer, actually. That's a pretty well-known book, as you mentioned. Next one. What would you do for a living if screens didn't exist?
I think I would love to have my own farm and like just build like a very big family in the countryside with animals. Yeah.
Respect,
Amazing.
respect.
Amazing. Yes, big time.
I'm going to
Danny,
throw, yeah, I'm going to throw two about sports. I've seen that you are preparing for a half marathon, right? So actually, you have here
no,
in the call one,
half Ironman, half Ironman.
yeah, half
Was it
Yeah.
half a
Ironman, yeah,
marathon or
It,
half
it's
Ironman.
Ironman?
it's a half
Yes.
Ironman. We actually like have a date now, so we're gonna do the half Ironman of Mallorca in May
Ooh,
2026.
I'm
Uh,
I'm
Actually,
I'm
you
a
have
half Ironman, so if you need any tips, I can help you there.
well, if I'm in Barcelona, let's go for a run or swim together.
For
That's for
sure,
sure.
for sure. I'm a veteran though. It was 6 years ago when I did my half Ironman, so I'm a bit rusty now. Sorry, Danny. I just wanted. I
yes.
had my moment of glory.
No, actually, I was going to point it out that you are a half Ironman man. So now the question is more, and I've also seen that you have in the office this dashboard that is tracking how many how many times that do people go to the gym. So what does what role does sport play in your life and also in Throxy?
I I think like I grew up playing loads of sports. That was for me like what made me really happy. I played basketball semi-professionally against a lot of people who are now in the NBA. And just like the fact of like training really hard and seeing improvements made me like be like number one, like mentally like so much better. Number two, really coachable person. So I love getting feedback from everyone at Throxy and even like people from outside and hearing their own opinion. And just the discipline of like doing hard things over and over again, even like showing up to training at 6 a.m. when you don't want to, and then like having to train on the night session at like 8 p.m. It's just like if you have like that discipline in you, like you're just like simply unstoppable and you just believe you can do things. And going back to like what sports looks like at Throxy, well, I obviously like can't spend as much time as I would like love to playing sports, but we do encourage everyone to like sleep very well because that makes you like have like better cognitive benefits and like healthier life. And then everyone gets a gym membership, which is a 1 minute walk from our office. And we love to like go to the gym together and just be very active. We just think it's how we get to do our best work. And essentially like we have this thesis at Throxy, which is like when work feels like play, you'll just like time will just like warp through. And that's the way we get to like work very hard because it's something we love and it just doesn't feel like play. Sorry, it doesn't feel like work. It feels more like play. And when I tell this to my friends, they just think I'm crazy, but maybe that's just us.
So I think we also have this mentality here at Flowhawk. We both love to do sports. I practice Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Nacho has done
Very cool.
half Ironman. So
And
actually,
I'm a CrossFit wannabe now, I guess.
I've actually run 3 marathons a couple of years
Wow.
ago. So super interesting. Okay, let's keep with the sports. Let's get to this type of questions that I like, this apocalypse question. Like imagine imagine that you can never play again or practice again a sport you have done in the past. So no more running, no more swimming, no more basketball, and you can only practice one new sport for the rest of your life. What would this sport be?
I love trying new sports, and two sports I've never tried, but I think sound very interesting are both skiing and playing golf. I think I would prefer skiing because golf is like just too relaxing for me. I love like doing stuff which is actually like active. So I'd probably like learn how to ski very well and just travel to nice places.
That's
Actually,
actually one of my dreams. I'm also a big skier, and one of my dreams is like travel around and ski all over the place.
you have to see Nacho skiing because Nacho is actually you are also very tall. I think Nacho
I'm
it's
pretty.
2 meters.
How tall are you?
How
We'll keep this off the record. How tall are you?
I'm 6'6", which is 195.
Okay, solid. See,
Okay,
I don't play I don't play basketball, and I'm 206.
Wow,
So I'm
that's very
yeah,
tall.
yeah. But I
you
don't
have
play
to
basketball.
watch Nacho skiing because it's a
Wow.
bro and it's crazy seeing like a guy that it's 2 meters 6, like doing these amazing movements. So it's amazing.
Wow.
I don't think I want to cut this off the podcast. I think it's very cool to have some moment of
Have
glory.
it.
Okay, now last question, which we started a few episodes back, and we actually like it. Also, disclaimer: kids underage, don't listen for this. Fuck, marry, kill. AI tools, AI sales tools. Which ones do you pick?
You
Well,
cannot
I
pick
don't.
Throxy.
Oh,
Gotcha.
um, that's a very hard question. I think I would have to like fuck one of like the email warm up polls, which is like help you warm up emails because that's just essential. I would have to marry one of the end-to-end tools like probably Clay because it's great for like getting good data. And then I think I would kill something. Um, I
Biggest
honestly do.
competitor?
I don't know. I don't think we have like big compet.
No.
I would honestly kill like just bad managers that like force SDRs to write emails by hand and just send them by hand because you think that wouldn't exist, but like we speak with a lot of people and they still do this. So that's probably, but yeah.
Solid answer. Do you have a specific tool for the fuck one? Because you mentioned like what type of tool, but not a name.
I think the email bison one has a pretty good solid email warm up. Well, I can't remember the name off the top of my tongue, but yeah.
It's okay. They can do their own research. All right. With this, we have come to an end. Thank you so much, Arnau, for coming. We had such a great time with you. Danny, thank you also for showing up. Guys, see you on the next episode.
My pleasure.